I wasn't naive. Not completely, at least. When a 25-year-old woman walks into your life and calls you charming instead of old, you don't just believe it blindly. But I also wasn't desperate. I was 50, still strong, still in shape, still sharp. I had built a successful career designing luxury spaces for people who thought beauty could be bottled in glass and stone. I had money, yes, but I had taste too. Maybe that's why I thought Livy was the exception. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room, not just with her looks, but with her timing. She knew when to laugh, when to lower her eyes, when to say something that made you feel like the center of the universe. I met her at a gallery showing downtown. She was standing in front of one of my old projects, a glass and steel museum atrium, and said, "This one feels like it breathes." I told her I designed it. She didn't blink. Then I guess I should meet the man who gave it lungs. We had dinner that night. I didn't lie to myself about why she liked me. I wasn't pretending I looked 30, but I wasn't falling apart either. And yes, the money mattered. I accepted that. I thought it was part of the equation, not the whole thing. The first few months were easy. Dinners turned into weekends. Weekends turned into whispers about moving in. She said I made her feel safe, that she'd never had that before, that older men had a gravity, younger ones didn't. I didn't ask questions I didn't want answers to. We got married less than a year later. My friends raised eyebrows, but I didn't care. I'd already lived one life. I was ready to live another. For a while, I thought I had it right. She hosted dinners, smiled at my colleagues, kissed me goodbye in the mornings. She called me her anchor. I liked the sound of that. Even if I occasionally caught her staring at her phone a little too long or laughing too hard at texts she never shared. Then came the favors. Small at first. "Can you help my friend Daniel with a loan? He's trying to start an online design platform, but no bank will touch him. He's harmless, just a nerd who needs a boost." The first time she asked, I said no. The second time, she cried. Said I didn't believe in her judgment. That she finally felt like she could support someone else for once. So I gave in. 20 grand. A temporary investment, she called it. I didn't hear from Daniel. Ever. The months rolled on. She traveled more. Yoga retreats, art residencies, women's networking conferences. Always something. I asked to come along once, and she laughed. "You'd be bored out of your mind. It's all soul-searching and green juice." But I wasn't blind. Or stupid. I noticed the card charges. Boutique hotels I hadn't booked, restaurants I'd never heard of, and cities I hadn't visited. She always had explanations. "My friend forgot her card. It's reimbursed later. I was just networking." I didn't fight her. I just started watching more closely. Then one night, she left her tablet on the kitchen island. Normally I wouldn't touch it, but a message popped up before I could turn away. "Baby, the wire came through. He actually did it. Can't wait to see you." No name. Just that. And my heart didn't race. It slowed. Like everything around me dropped into cold water. I opened the message thread. It was Daniel. Not a nerd. Not just a friend. There were photos. One of her, curled in his lap in what looked like a cabin in Montana. A trip she said was a solo retreat. Another at a restaurant in New York, where she told me she was with her cousin. Then I saw the kicker. A spreadsheet. A shared file. Titled Exit Plan Q4. Under it, notes about transferring funds from M's personal, prepping Daniel's LLC for incoming assets, and a bullet point that said, "Soft exit after villa transfer. Emotional buffer, 3 to 6 months." I stood there, silent. The walls of my home, the one she decorated, the one she said felt like our palace, suddenly looked like a stage set. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I closed the tablet, poured myself a drink, and sat on the back porch as the sun set behind the hills. I thought about the past 2 years. About every dinner, every compliment, every quiet moment where she'd rested her head on my shoulder. How many were scripted? How many were rehearsals? I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just still. I slept in the guest room that night. She didn't notice. The next morning, I kissed her on the cheek like usual. She smiled. Said, "You're the calm in my storm." I said nothing. But inside, I knew the storm was coming. Not for me. For her. It's strange how easily someone can smile to your face with a mouth full of lies. Once I saw that message from Daniel, I couldn't unsee anything. Every little thing she'd ever said was suddenly under a microscope. Not just the words, the pauses between them, the tone, the timing. And the more I thought back, the more I realized she had never really lied. She just never told me the truth. That morning, After I kissed her cheek and watched her walk barefoot into the kitchen to make her smoothie, I sat quietly in my office, replaying the last 2 years in my mind. I opened a blank notebook. I dated the top. And then I began writing. Not emotions, not poems, just facts. Expenses, trips, conversations, transfers. All the moments I had ignored, now itemized. By noon, I had 6 pages. By evening, 8. She was in the living room, curled up watching a true crime documentary. Ironic, really. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching. She looked peaceful, like someone with no guilt at all. "Matt?" she asked, without looking up. "Yeah. Can we do the wine tasting thing in Sonoma next weekend? I saw this adorable inn with private cottages." "Sure," I said and smiled. I already knew she wasn't going to Sonoma with me. Over the next week, I played dumb. I kissed her, complimented her, asked about her meditation coaching sessions. I even offered to help her with Daniel's startup, just to watch her squirm. But she didn't. She was good. Too good. The act was polished. Her eyes sparkled with gratitude when I offered help. She even reached across the dinner table, touched my hand, and said, "I've never had someone believe in me like you do." I almost applauded. But while she played house, I played chess. First, I met with my banker. Quietly, I moved my most liquid assets to a trust, one that didn't list me as the primary manager, just in case. Then I met with my lawyer, the one who'd handled my contracts back when I still ran my firm. "I need to lock down every asset I can," I told him. "But it has to be invisible. No noise." He leaned back in his chair, took one long look at me, and said, "Prenup?" I shook my head. She insisted we skip it, said it felt like I was planning for failure. I agreed. He didn't say it, but I could hear the word in his silence. Fool. Still, we had options. The house was mine before the marriage. The car's in my name. The business stakes? Mostly dissolved post-retirement. The villa in Tuscany, that one she'd been pushing me to put in her name. That, we'd revisit. But before the big moves, I needed more. So I hired someone. A quiet, gray man named Powell, with a voice like gravel and the fashion sense of a funeral director. He never smiled. Never talked more than necessary. But in less than 3 days, he gave me everything. Daniel wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her partner, in more ways than one. They had a Shell LLC in Delaware, a shared apartment in Chicago, rented under a friend's name, and a list of targeted investors that included me. There were emails, photos, recordings. In one video, she laughed and said, "Honestly, he's sweet. Almost makes me feel bad." Daniel replied, "Don't. He's rich, not stupid. If he hasn't figured it out by now, he's choosing not to." She leaned in, kissed him, and whispered, "Soon, baby. Just need a few more months." That was the night I stopped feeling anything for her at all. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen humming. I was already there, sipping coffee and reading a folder. She leaned over and kissed my cheek like nothing had changed. "Can I borrow your Amex for the retreat thing?" she asked sweetly. "They're charging today, and I hit the limit on mine." I looked up, smiled. "Of course," I said. "Just don't max it out." Again, she giggled. "Promise." I handed it over. I wanted her to think she was still in control. By noon, I'd canceled the card from my office. By 3 p.m., she called me. "Hey, weird thing, card's not working?" "Huh," I said. "Let me check with the bank. Probably fraud monitoring again." She laughed. "You and your fancy algorithms." While she thought it was a blip, I was closing every door behind her. That weekend, she said she had a women's circle retreat out of town. She kissed me goodbye, promised she'd call every night, and even left me a scented note on the pillow. But I didn't stay home. I flew to Chicago. Powell had found the apartment. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I just stood across the street and watched them through the second-story window. Her in leggings, laughing. Him shirtless, cooking. They looked like newlyweds. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was clarity. I had lived in illusion long enough. I flew home the next morning. Beat her back. The kitchen was spotless. The bed still made. No trace she'd ever left, just like always. She got home late Sunday night. She was tired, wore a hoodie, and smelled like hotel soap. She kissed me with a tired smile. "Good retreat." She nodded. "So healing. I think I've finally let go of a lot of baggage." I smiled. "Me too." She went to bed early. I stayed up, watching the security footage of our front door while she was away. No one ever came to the house. Because she hadn't been at a retreat. She'd been playing house with Daniel. And soon, her role in this story was about to end. The next few days passed like a calm before the storm. Livy acted the same, cheerful, affectionate in public, distracted but polite at home. I went along with it. Smiled when she smiled. Nodded when she talked about yoga or business books or some new podcast that taught her to manifest abundance. Meanwhile, I kept writing things down. Dates, numbers, patterns. I wasn't collecting revenge. I was building a case. One evening, she brought up the villa in Tuscany again. Matt, it's silly to keep it under just your name. If something happened to you, I'd be stuck dealing with Italian bureaucracy. You want me to be taken care of, don't you? Her voice was sugar-coated, but the eyes were calculating. I sipped my wine and nodded thoughtfully. You're right, I said. Let's talk to the lawyer about it. She smiled like a cat that had already tasted the cream. The next day, I met with my lawyer again, this time to prepare a decoy agreement. A transfer document that looked legitimate, but had enough buried legal conditions to stop anything short of death from making it real. He chuckled when he finished drafting it. She'll think it's done, but the villa stays yours, airtight. I thanked him and told him to be ready. This was just the opening move. That weekend, I went to the storage unit where I kept all my paper records, back when I still believed in keeping things physical. I pulled out the folder marked Estate and Travel. Inside were every real document tied to the villa purchase deed, property tax receipts, utility logs. I took them all and locked them in a new safe in my office. Then I changed the code on the old one, the one Livy had access to, and left it empty, except for decoy paperwork. When I came home, she was on the phone, laughing, pacing, barefoot. I heard her say the words, locked in by next month, and once the title clears. She paused when she saw me, then said quickly, okay, gotta go. Love you too. She smiled like nothing happened. I just raised an eyebrow. Planning something big? She shook her head. Just talking with a realtor friend. You know I've been dreaming of flipping properties. I kissed her forehead. Dream big. That night I watched her sleep. Not because I felt anything for her, that was long gone. But I wanted to remember this version of her. The peaceful mask. The soft breathing. The illusion she built so well. Because soon, it would all start to fall apart. The first crack came 3 days later. She called me from the salon. Hey babe, weird thing. My debit card got declined, and the girl said the account's frozen? I kept my voice even. That's strange. I'll check with the bank. She hesitated. Okay, but I need to pay now. Can I use yours? I pretended to fumble. I left it at home. Sorry. Should I Venmo the stylist? A pause. No, I'll figure it out. That evening she was colder than usual. Not angry, just tense. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat on the couch, and scrolled on her phone for almost an hour without speaking. I let her. She was recalculating. The next morning I left for an early meeting. Instead, I met Powell. He handed me a fresh report. She's moved $27,000 from your gift account into the shell company. They're paying a down payment on a new property next week under Daniel's friend's name. Probably a flip project. She thinks it'll fund their fresh start. I nodded, flipping through the pages. Good. Let her keep thinking that. He raised an eyebrow. You're not stopping it? I shook my head. No. I'm documenting it. I want everything in place before I shut it all down. He understood. That's why I paid him. Over the next 2 weeks, I pulled every string I could reach: old clients, club directors, charity organizers. I didn't make wild accusations. I simply shared quiet facts. You might want to reconsider inviting Livy to that donor circle, I said to a board chair. There's a lot of noise around her name lately. Some questionable filings. I left whispers in the right ears, like breadcrumbs. Nothing loud. Nothing cruel. But when people who matter hear enough rumors, especially calm ones, doors start to close on their own. I also called in a favor from an old friend in media law. I asked him to do a deep social background search. Anything public, anything buried. He came back with gold. 2 years before we met, Livy had been involved in a small influencer scam. Fake charity partnerships, ghost-written testimonials. Nothing illegal, but enough to burn a few bridges. The name change from Olivia Rose Martin to Livy Rose wasn't a rebrand. It was a cover-up. We compiled it all. Quietly. Legally. Methodically. I began moving out assets from shared visibility. Closed unnecessary accounts. Changed passwords. Pulled back authorizations she didn't even realize she had. I left just enough in the shared accounts to keep her thinking everything was fine. One evening, she came into the kitchen holding a brochure. This place in Bali. They do these luxury couple retreats. I think it could be good for us. Reconnect. Heal. She said the word heal like it had weight. Like she hadn't gutted our marriage from the inside out. I smiled. Book it. She blinked, caught off guard. Really? I nodded. I think you're right. We could use a fresh chapter. She leaned in, kissed me slowly. I love when you say things like that. She didn't know it was the final chapter, just not the one she thought. The next morning, I watched her drive off to meet her wellness mentor. When the gate closed behind her, I opened the safe in my office and pulled out the manila folder labeled Final Stage. Inside, everything. The timeline, the transfers, the photos, the file on Daniel, the fake property deal, the shell company details, the signed but invalid villa agreement, and a notarized letter addressed to her, explaining, in cold legal terms, that I knew it all. I placed the folder on her desk. Then I called the villa's local property manager and told him to cancel every pending document and freeze all access. I notified my financial advisor to begin the final transition of funds into protected holdings. I called Powell and told him to deliver the legal package to Daniel's project site the next morning. And then I sat on the patio, poured a drink, and waited. By sunset, the mask would fall. And when it did, I'd be the only one left standing in the light. She came home late. I heard the car pull up, the beep of the gate, the rhythmic click of her heels on the driveway tiles. I was already seated in the study, pretending to read a book I wasn't actually seeing. When she entered the house, her voice rang out sweet and careless. Babe, I brought that herbal tea you like. I didn't answer. Just let her walk into the room and see it. The folder. It sat on her vanity chair, bold, deliberate, with her name in black ink across the cover. She paused when she saw it, tilted her head, like a cat spotting movement in the grass. What's this? She asked, still holding the shopping bag. I didn't reply. She opened it. Silence. No gasp. No outrage. Just a long, eerie pause as she flipped page after page. I watched her eyes move. Receipts. Photos. Quotes from Daniel. The fake business plan. The timeline. The message from Powell documenting how she'd tried to get the Tuscany villa into her name using a forged signature from a proxy notary. And finally, the letter. It wasn't dramatic. It was cold. Surgical. My handwriting, direct. This marriage was never real. This was a transaction. One you thought I wouldn't notice. But I did. And now the balance has shifted. You're no longer part of the plan. She looked up slowly. Her voice was breathy. You've been spying on me? I smiled without warmth. I've been documenting you. She set the folder down, carefully, like it might burn her fingers. You don't understand. Daniel, it wasn't what you think. I stood. Livy, everything I think is now written down and time-stamped. There's nothing left to guess. She tried a different tactic. We had something real, Matt. You felt it too, right? Maybe I got scared. Maybe I made mistakes. But it doesn't mean we have to burn everything down. I walked past her and poured a drink. You were never afraid. You were patient. You waited until you thought I was too old, too soft, too far gone to notice. You were wrong. Her voice dropped to a lower register. Less actress, more operator. What do you want? I looked her in the eye. Nothing. That's the point. I'm not suing you. I'm not pressing charges. I'm not chasing you. I'm just ending you. She blinked. Excuse me. You'll find your club memberships have been revoked. The fund you were building with Daniel? Frozen, legally and quietly. Your social access? Fading as we speak. Every investor in your little project got a quiet, anonymous message. No drama. No scandal. Just caution. I sipped my drink. The world you were climbing into doesn't want to be touched by scandal, Livy. They don't care if the rumors are true. They only care that there are rumors. Her face flushed, then paled. You can't do that. I raised an eyebrow. You think people open doors for you because you're clever? Because you're beautiful? No. They opened them because I held the keys. And now, I've closed them. She staggered back a step, the performance mask fully gone. So that's it. You're just, what, exiling me? No, I said. You exiled yourself. I'm just turning off the lights. She didn't cry. That surprised me. She just stood there, mouth slightly open, chest rising and falling like someone trying to find oxygen on a mountaintop. I left her standing in the office and went to bed. Slept better than I had in weeks. By morning, she was gone. No note. No dramatic goodbye. Just a closet half empty and a silence that hung like fog. I made coffee, opened my email, and began deleting her calendar events from my accounts. That afternoon, I got a call from my friend Michael, one of the directors of the gallery she used to flaunt as her network. "Hey," he said, cautiously. "Just wanted to let you know. Livy reached out, asked if she could still host that fundraiser." I told her the board had voted to move forward with someone else. I smiled. "Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it." She tried. Over the next few days, I heard whispers. She went to lunches, tried to explain, told people I was controlling, vengeful, dangerous. But by then, the circles had already closed. The whispers I left behind weren't angry. They were disappointed. That's what hurts more in those circles. Rage is easy to recover from. Quiet shame? That stains. Powell sent word that Daniel had attempted to file a formal complaint about harassment from a private spy. My lawyer responded with a one-page denial and a notarized packet showing misuse of transferred funds. Nothing stuck. But Daniel backed off. 2 weeks passed. I didn't see Livy. Didn't try. I went to my club, took meetings, met old friends. Everyone was polite. No one asked about her. She had vanished from their minds like an embarrassing misprint. Then one morning, I got a call. Blocked number. I answered out of curiosity. Her voice was small, thin. "Matt." I waited. I know you hate me, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this way." I said nothing. "I messed up, but I really did care about you. In my own way." Still nothing. After a long pause, she added, "I'm moving. Out of the city. Starting over. Just thought you should know." Then silence. I ended the call without a word. There was nothing left to say. She'd written her script. She'd played her part. But the stage was mine now. And I had rewritten the ending. The city moved on without her. That's how it works in places like this. Reputation is currency, and once it's spent, there are no refunds. Livy had tried to reappear, first at an art gallery soft opening, then at a wine tasting downtown. Each time, she smiled like nothing had happened. But each time, people turned slightly, subtly, politely away. She wasn't shunned. Not dramatically. That would have given her attention. No, they just left her in the silence between conversations. I didn't watch her fall. I didn't need to. I had people for that. Powell kept his reports brief. She attempted to start a consulting firm. 3 clients dropped within a week. She tried to pitch a collaboration with a boutique brand she used to model for. They restructured priorities. Even the yoga influencer she'd once hosted in our home declined a tag on social media. She hadn't just lost her place. She'd lost her platform. I kept quiet. Didn't gloat. Didn't speak her name. The people who mattered knew. The rest didn't need to. And that was the brilliance of it. No press. No courtroom drama. Just erasure. Meanwhile, I lived. I spent mornings at my club, afternoons on the restoration project I'd been putting off for years, a mid-century house on the edge of a cliff with broken bones and good light. I liked working with my hands again. The sound of a power drill was more honest than anything I'd heard in that marriage. One night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Are you still angry?" I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. A week later, another text. "He left. Took what little we had left." I made a mistake. I didn't reply. That was her final card, pity. But she underestimated me again. I wasn't cruel. I just believed in consequences. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd orchestrated it. Planned it. Funded her lover with my earnings, smiled at me over dinner while doing it, and thought there'd be no cost. Now she knew better. One morning, Powell called with a new report. Livy had applied for a high-end real estate internship, one of those fast-track placements funded by donors and connections. Her application was rejected before it hit the second desk. Quiet phone calls. Unspoken suggestions. The network was working exactly as it should. She was now renting a modest studio apartment under her maiden name. No car. No assistant. No invites. Her online presence had withered to private posts and lukewarm comments from distant acquaintances. That night, I pulled out the last envelope. It was one I had prepared months ago, before I acted on anything. A backup plan, in case things escalated. Inside were final legal documents, an offer of settlement, a non-disclosure clause, and a list of assets she had no remaining claim to. I never had to use them. She had walked away with nothing but her name, and even that was starting to lose value. I went back to the house on the cliff. The frame was nearly finished. The wood smelled fresh, like beginnings. One afternoon, I invited my old friend Elise to see the project. She was an architect too, retired, sharp, and funny in that dry way I liked. We spent hours walking through the open beams, laughing about building codes and terrible clients. When we sat on the temporary deck overlooking the water, she turned to me and said, "You look lighter, like someone who remembered who he was." "I feel like someone who stopped lying to himself," I said. She nodded, then added quietly, "I never liked her." "I know." We watched the sun fall below the horizon. A few days later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the curve of the letters. "Matt, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read this. I just wanted to say that for a while, I did feel something real. Maybe not love. Maybe not the kind you deserved. But something. I ruined it. I know that. I ruined everything. I'm leaving the city for good. I thought I could outrun my mistakes, but they stick to me. You were right about that. There are doors I'll never open again. I guess I just wanted you to know I understand now. You were never the fool. I was. L. I folded the letter, placed it in the back of the safe with the rest of the documents, and closed the door. No rage. No satisfaction. Just quiet. The house by the cliff was nearly finished. I planned to live there full-time once it was done. I'd already sold the house Livy once called our palace. The new place was smaller, simpler, real. One evening, as I installed a light fixture, I paused and looked out over the ocean. No noise. No lies. No tension hiding behind dimples and designer perfume. Just peace. And sometimes, peace is the best revenge. The house was finished in late spring. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just a soft breeze rolling in from the cliffs and the quiet satisfaction of walls that didn't echo with someone else's lies. I moved in with a single suitcase, a box of tools, and 3 pieces of art I actually liked, not the curated nonsense Livy once called statement pieces. This place didn't need statements. It needed truth. I built a desk by hand. Nothing ornate, smooth oak, clean edges, honest weight. Each cut, each sanding pass, was a quiet reminder that I was capable. I didn't need decorators or approval or praise. I didn't even need revenge anymore. I had already won. No one knew exactly what happened. There were rumors, of course. Whispers in clubs and offices and art circles. A few said she'd run off with a man and lost everything. Others claimed she stole from me, tried to flip properties and failed. But the truth? The truth was quieter than all of that. She tried to play a long con, and I let her. Just long enough to make sure when it collapsed, it couldn't be rebuilt. The final blow wasn't legal or financial. It was social. Once you're out of the inner circle, there's no way back in. The invitations dry up. The handshakes become nods from across the room, or nothing at all. That world only welcomes fresh, clean stories. Not scandals. Not desperation. I heard she moved south, maybe Austin. She tried to get into a wellness brand there. Didn't last long. New circles have old connections. She changed her name again, I think. Started using just initials. The rebrand of a ghost. Sometimes I wondered if she ever sat in a quiet apartment, staring at her phone, wondering where it all went wrong. But I didn't dwell on it. I didn't need to. One afternoon, I opened the safe where I'd kept everything. Her letter, the documents, the final proof of it all. I took them out, stacked them on the table, and fed them one by one into the fireplace. Not out of rage. Not to erase her. Just to let it go. The fire crackled softly. I watched the edges curl, darken, vanish. It was done. Not with a scream. Not with a slammed door. Just with distance. And silence. Elise visited again not long after. She brought wine and her sharp sense of humor. We ate on the deck, watching the waves. She asked me if I was dating yet. I said no. She didn't push. That's one of the reasons I liked her. You know, she said, swirling her glass. You're not bitter. I expected bitterness. I shrugged. Bitterness is a rope tied around your own throat. I chose a scalpel. She laughed. Still dramatic, even in peace. I smiled. Just honest. We sat there in the dusk, the sky slowly darkening around us. No pretense. No secrets. Just 2 people who'd lived long enough to know what mattered. The next morning, I took a walk down the beach trail. The sun was warm, but not sharp. I passed a family, young parents, 2 kids, a dog that barked excitedly at the waves. They smiled at me. I smiled back. Simple human moments. The kind that don't need drama to feel real. For years, I thought legacy meant buildings, money, influence. But maybe it was just this, waking up without regret. breathing air that didn't carry someone else's perfume, knowing you acted with clarity, not vengeance. I didn't post about it, didn't make speeches or write articles. People who knew me didn't ask. They understood. And those who didn't, their curiosity didn't matter. One night, months later, I got an envelope forwarded from my old office. No return address. Inside was a photo, Livy and Daniel, from long ago, taken in some cheap cabin. She was laughing. He was looking at her like she was everything. Scrawled on the back in familiar handwriting were just 3 words. We deserved worse. No name. No explanation. I burned that too. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't. Hate is heavy, and I had no more weight to carry. The ocean stayed. The light changed, as it always does. And I stayed calm. Because in the end, I didn't shout. I didn't break things. I didn't chase her through courts or tabloids or clubs. I just walked out of her story and took the light with me.